We have a PHP form. The form handler now has just 4 lines at the top level doing the validation. Although even that, I'd like to package that up a little bit better. I mean, in the words I was just sort of saying, I'm saying, hey, what's the first thing that the form handler does? It has some lines to validate the input. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. We should have one function that does the validation, not 4. Even though we got each of those 4 things down to a single line, we're going to take those 4 lines and put them into their own file. So, no problem. Let's go and look at that. So I'm going to take these 4 lines here. I'm going to copy and paste. And here's what I'm going to want to do. Here's what I'm going to want to end up with. I'm going to have a function maybe called allErrorMessages. Its purpose is to return all the error messages for the form. Okay, allErrorMessages, something like that. I'll pass it the information from the form, which in this case is in my post array, and I'm going to get back some sort of array full of the error messages. Okay. And then I want to go ahead and say, hey, now I have this array of strings, and I want to print it all out. So how can I do that? Well, I can go ahead and use a for each loop to loop over the string. In fact, I think we already had some example code where we very early on took in an array and we turned one string of HTML that was an unordered list for that array. So I think I called that toUL. Okay. So I can go ahead and call toUL, and this is going to go ahead, if I echo that, there, now I have all my validation done right there. Awesome. That is pretty cool. We're leveraging toUL already written, and, well, we still have to write all error messages. Okay. Oh, I have my caps lock on. That would explain my weird behavior. Okay. Yeah, and I might want to come back here and add in a little header or something like that. In fact, I might want to only print out something if there were error messages. And so here's the idiomatic way of doing this in PHP. If there were errors, then go ahead and do something. And it almost reads idiomatically. If errors, then echo blah, blah, blah. Okay? And now you're like, wait a minute, Barley, you can't fool me. I've had Java in an if statement. The thing between the parentheses needs to be a Boolean. In Java, it has to be of type Boolean. In a lot of languages, they sort of are a little bit more relaxed about that. They sort of say, hey, you give me something inside an if condition in a Boolean context, and I'll see if it's true-ish or false-ish. Okay, so and different languages have different corner cases of what is true-ish or false-ish. But a string, the string hello is probably true-ish in just about every language. It turns out in PHP, one of the things that counts as true-ish is a non-empty array, and an empty array counts as false-ish. So, since I know errors is an array, this sort of says, hey, if it is a non-empty array, then do something. If it's the empty array, then we don't even call the toUL function. Okay, so that's a little bit of true-ish and false-ish being used in context. That's a concept in a bunch of languages. The fact that PHP treats arrays in a certain way, in a kind of an odd way, is a very PHP specific. So don't put too much stock in that. You can sort of see why they made an empty array be false and any other array be true. Exactly so we could write code like this right here. Right there. Right there. Other languages, it's kind of weird for an array, whether it's empty or not, to count as true-ish or as false-ish. So, okay, cool. Let's go ahead now and just get all error messages. We're going to put that code, well, not in this file, because we're going to have test cases for this, aren't we? Validate.php. Okay, so here's where string invalid message is, and I'm going to go and add into this file here a new function called allErrorMessages. messages, and it's going to take an array, I'll call it form info. Okay. So I'm going to have to change this code right here. Right now it's a bunch of echo statements. That's what I used to have. We're not doing any echoing. We're returning a value the way a good function should. So we have something along this line, string invalid message of, it won't be post. I'll change every occurrence of post to form info, not form into. Okay. I just have a bunch of underscores running around. I do. Okay. I see. My editing goofed up. No problem. There we are. I think I have translating this right. I still have some echoes going on. So here I have the string invalid message. And remember, this function, string invalid message, either gives back a string or a false. Here's what I want to say. If this thing is not false. Okay. I guess I could go ahead and say this, again with that true-ish and false-ish. If string invalid message, then do something with it. It turns out, PHP, the empty string counts as false-ish, and I'm just going to be a little bit more strict. I'm like, is string invalid message gives me back a string or false? Anything but false is going to count as an error message. So I could do something like that. I could say if it's not equal to true, or it's not equal to false. That's probably a better phrasing of that. Okay. If this thing is not equal to false, then it must be a string. Okay, great. What do I want to do? I want to go ahead and put it into some array that I'm going to return. So let's go ahead and make an array that I'm going to return. All errors gets, initialize it to be an empty array, and then I'm going to go ahead and say, oops, if there's an error here, I'm going to say all errors. I could just push it on the end of the array. I could say all errors gets, and then that string message. Oh gosh, I want to do this. I want to repeat this whole call to string invalid message. Let me save it into a variable. Okay. Request error message. There we are. Okay. If request error message is not equal to false, without any type conversions, okay, then all errors gets request error message. So I could just sort of stick it in the array here. I'm going to actually do a little bit differently. I'm going to go ahead and put it in with the index quest. Okay. In fact, I might put it on one line because I think this is small enough that it should be on one line. So I have a little two-line sequence here, call string invalid message, and then if there is an error message, put it into my array all errors. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and duplicate that for the favorite color. See if I got that copy paste right there. I don't want to call it quest error message. I would call it favorite. You know, again, this is one where it's a little bit longer, but I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to use the name favorite color spelled out, not call it just color or fave call or something like that. And then if here, if that's not equal to false, then go ahead and put it right there. Favorite hyphen color. I'm going to use the same Same name as it was all the way back in the HTML form, the name attribute I used on that input for that text box way back when. Okay, let me make the screen a little bit wider. Some people say 80 characters is the how wide a screen should be. I think in these days of wider screens, it's on 100 characters. It's not an unreasonable limit on the width of a line. And we're right about there. It's about 95 characters long. Okay. Okay. The thing about this one, so again, gosh, more copy pasting. That rubs me the wrong way, doesn't it? It just feels wrong. I shouldn't be doing all this copy pasting. We'll factor this code out in a second. Okay, so I want to do this thing about the message, string invalid message. Okay, favorite, except I want to call it, this is the message error message. Okay. Oops. There we are. Okay. And then I can go ahead and maybe put in, we have this thing here. Again, I want echo is happy, but I will go ahead and, if that whole thing is true, all errors of is happy. Okay, so I don't know if it's helpful to sit here and painfully watch me type all this stuff out, but maybe it is. Gets, oops, what's the message error, oops, now I'm confusing myself. All errors of is happy gets, and we'll put in that error message. Okay, sounds good. Okay, so now we have those same sort of 4 lines or so, 8 lines, or I'm not just echoing the error message, but I'm getting it and putting it into the array, and then at the very end, oops, return all errors. Okay. This is good. This is a nice little thing. Let's go ahead and give a description of it. We can write test cases for it. Now, one thing I'll point out, this function does not access the array post. Okay? Our function does not access the global array post, and that's a strength. It means I can go ahead and test it with any sort of array that I want to put in, and I can run my error tests. It's always good if if you can avoid using a global variable. Yeah, that just makes your code predictable, more decomposable. So, okay, all error messages give me an array of string, and I'll return an array of string. Well, this array of strings is really a little bit more, was the form information array, which I guess it's not always an array of strings, so it could be arrays in that array as well. So maybe I'll fix that up. And again, a 1-line comment here. What we want to put is a little 1-line description of what this function does. Given form information for, this code is really specific to the form that I'm using, which I think I'm calling form 0 validated. It's kind of not a very great name for a form, but it has to do with this lesson. Okay. Given the form information from such a form, return an array of all the error messages indexed by the offending field. Okay, so I can go ahead and do this. I'm not going to go through, I'm sure you write some, yeah, well, let's go ahead and do some test cases for this. All error messages. Let's go to validate test.php. Test all error messages. What if you gave me an empty array? What should the result be? Gosh, if you give me an empty array with no inputs at all. Yeah, well, this is now very specific to my form again. But I should get back, should the quest be an error? Well, I didn't say it was required. If it were required, that should be an error, but it's not required, and it's not exceeding the max length. Favorite color is okay, checkbox, no violation there. So this particular form, because I had no required fields, and the empty string was valid for any input and all that, all error messages of array should say there's no errors at all, which should return an empty array. Okay. It turns out this test method, not so good on testing. Equals doesn't really work on arrays in PHP. We have to write our own function to do a deep equality test. So we'll go ahead and really say, hey, take the array that I get back, and it should be an array with 0 error messages, so the count, that's the size of that thing, of that array, the count should be 0. Okay, so here's one test I can do. What if you gave me an array that included quest goes to happiness, and that's all? Well, that'd still be the same thing. Maybe I'm going to include what were some of the other fields we had? The favorite color. This a little bit feels like the stuff that I have in my my form handler test files, doesn't it? Gosh, why don't I go and grab some of those form handler test files? Why am I typing all this stuff out again? I'm going to go grab form 0 validated. That's the name of my general topic, like Okamon or whatever. Hyphen handler hyphen test 1.php. Was that name? That wasn't the name. Form 0 validated, handled, oh, handled. Handle, not handled, or handler. Okay. Great. So I'm going to just take this so I can cannibalize test of, if I call all error messages, and I pass it this array here. Okay. Then, now this is more of a unit test. If I do all this, I should get back an array with how many errors in it? So close off the array constructor, close off the call to all error messages, close off the call to count. I should get back how many error messages? Quest was too long. So that's going to be complained about. The favorite color is too long and has spaces. That's going to be another entry. Is happy is going to be just fine, and message nope is fine. So there should be 2 error messages on this. Okay, and maybe I should go ahead and indent a little bit more consistently here, and rates somehow tabs got entered into this file. Okay, oh, start there. I hate tabs. Go away, tabs. Be gone. Fill with spaces. Nice and easy. Okay. There we are. So I just reused what I had before, and I can go ahead and do that for some other things. Something that has all of them wrong. Maybe the exact same thing, except that, duplicate that, except is happy is no ho ho. In which case there should now be 3 error messages coming back. Again, this is kind of a crude unit test. I'm just sort of saying, hey, do I get back an array with the right number of strings in it? I'm not actually checking what those strings are. but you know, again, this is not full-scale testing. This is just some basic stuff here. Okay, great. That was from what I included. We don't do that anymore. So I've added three more test cases for count of all error messages. Since I already have stuff sitting in those other handle test files, I might make each of those into one of these tests here. Okay. Do I dare try this raw? Validate test.php and a parse error. Now again, is it worth your while watching me some error on this one? Line 33. What's wrong with line 33? It's weird that the error message would be on line 33 and not before or after. So I'm going to have to go and... Oh, it was on validate PHP, not on my validate test.php. Validate.php. We'll go on a little journey together. So this is my copy and pasting that I did over here. I had one extra close paren, it looks like. Let's make sure I didn't make that same mistake. Okay. Different mistake on line 39. One too few parens there. Okay. So now I'm pretty close, and oh, now I see that I have a test failed. 2 is not equal to 3. So let me go fix that, and I'll go ahead and pause to save you all the agony of watching me type through this. So if I can figure out how to pause again. There. And unpaused. Yeah, so making a few changes. Actually, I have another feature to my utils.php, but